Alrighty guys, so the pacing of today and yesterday's lessons was a little weird, so I decided to break it up into two different lessons. So today we are going to look at what we call elasticity of demand. Let me get the slide working real quick. Alright, so when you think of the word elastic, be thinking about like a rubber band, right? Something that can stretch, something that can move. Alright, and so what we're looking at with elasticity of demand is how much the demand of a good changes. Alright, and so if a good is elastic, then that means that it follows the normal law of demand, that if the price changes, then the demand's going to change along with it, right? So with this, think about most goods, right? Like McDonald's. If McDonald's were to double in price, chances are fewer, sorry, one moment. If McDonald's were to double in price, chances are few people would continue to shop there, right? If homes were to double in price, few people would be able to afford it. All right, so they would follow a normal elasticity of demand, meaning that the demand for it can stretch, it can move. If a good has inelastic demand, then that means it doesn't move, right? So an easy way to think about this is when you think of inelastic, think about like an inhaler or insulin, right? So if you have asthma, then it doesn't matter how much that inhaler is going to cost you. Chances are you're still going to buy it. All right, same thing with insulin if you're diabetic. A good friend of mine spends hundreds of dollars a month on insulin because he's diabetic and he has to have it. It doesn't matter what cost it is, that's probably going to be his first priority, otherwise he could get really sick or even die. Same thing with like that Daraprim drug, right? It would have a very inelastic demand. All right, so they raised the price from $7 to $700 a pill, and people still continue to buy that medicine. All right, so it would have a very inelastic demand. So again, when you look at elasticity of demand, all right, think about like an elastic waistband. If you're wearing gym shorts, right, it can stretch, it can move. All right, and so most goods would have elastic demand, like food or clothes or houses, cars, things like that. But if it has an inelastic demand, that means the demand isn't going to change that drastically, even with a change in price. All right, and so let's look at some things that can contribute to whether a good has elastic or inelastic demands. So first up is the availability of substitutes. So with that Daraprim drug, right now there's no substitutes. So if you have HIV, that's the only medicine that can keep you alive right now. And so because of that, people are going to pay out the wazoo for it. But if you look at the EpiPen as an alternative, right, for people that have allergies, so whenever it was just the EpiPen, they raised the price from about $30 to like $250, $300 for an EpiPen, right? And so it got so expensive that a lot of people couldn't afford it. All right, but what another pharmaceutical company did is they made their own version of the EpiPen because the patent is on the EpiPen itself, not epinephrine, which is the drug that you shoot into your leg if you have an allergic reaction. And so they took that drug, epinephrine, and they just made another way of injecting it into people. And so now that they have an alternative to it, the price dropped back down to like $50. All right, and so when that happened, EpiPen had to drop their prices as well. All right, the time horizon or how long you have to need this product matters as well. So I had a student my first year who was allergic to peanuts, and it wasn't on their Infinite Campus, it wasn't anywhere, and so I remember them eating a cracker, and then all of a sudden they looked at me, and was like, oh man, I'm allergic to peanuts. And like I started freaking out, and I was like, okay, where's your EpiPen, where's your EpiPen? He said, I don't have an EpiPen. I was like, what do you mean? And he's like, well, it's not that bad, I'll be kind of itchy for the rest of the day. You might want to call my mom, and she'll bring some medicine over. And so for him, the EpiPen didn't really have an inelastic demand because it wasn't something that he needed like on the spot that second. He could wait a little bit. And so because of that, he didn't have one. All right, and so how long you have until you need this product also matters, as well as the whole needs versus wants thing, right? So if you look at most luxury goods, these would be the wants, right? All right, these are things that we wouldn't really be willing to spend a whole lot more money on. However, whenever it comes to the needs, like if you think about medicine, like that Daraprim drug, people are going to spend whatever it takes because that's life or death for them. All right, and it's also the same reason that the government really heavily regulates businesses when it comes to things like hurricanes and other natural disasters. So when the last hurricane came through, there was a gas station down in Florida that was selling 24 packs of water for like $40. All right, and so they were really taking advantage of the fact that water has an inelastic demand when there's an emergency. All right, and so that business ended up losing their business license because they were price gouging people. All right, changes over time. That's just looking at how our demand for things change over time. So if you look at Pokemon cards is a good example for this. I don't know if y'all ever played with those or Yu-Gi-Oh cards or whatever. Businesses used to be able to charge a lot of money for these because the demand was so high for them. However, as the demand changed over time, they had to lower down the prices because not as many people wanted them. All right. With the definition of the market, you can look at like really nice shoes like Jordans or Balenciagos. I'm not sure how to pronounce it. And so the reason that these shoes are so expensive is because they've really narrowed the market of how many of them are available. When they release a new pair of Jordans, they only release a certain number of them. That way they can remain exclusive. And so because of that, they can charge a higher price. Now, if you're looking at a normal pair of Nikes, all right, they're not going to be able to charge that same amount because you can literally find a pair of Nikes anywhere. All right, so all of these factor into whether a good has elastic or inelastic demand, whether people's demand for these goods are going to change even if the price changes. All right, and so let's look at a good rule of thumb with elasticity, right? So for most businesses, it's in their best interest to keep their prices low, right? Because if McDonald's doubled their price, if they raised their price, chances are their revenue would drop down. They would make less money because fewer people would go there, and vice versa. All right, the reason people go to Walmart or McDonald's is because their prices are low, and so because of that, they can make more money. Their revenue's higher. So for most goods that have an elastic demand, meaning that the demand easily changes, it's in a business's best interest to have lower prices because that's where they're going to make the most money. If they keep raising their prices, then chances are fewer people are going to buy there. On the other hand, though, if you look at a good that has an inelastic demand, all right, it's in their best interest to keep prices high. So let's say that we have 1 million people in the world that are in the United States that have HIV, right? And so let's say that at $7 a pill, each of them are going to want that drug. Each of them are going to want that medicine. So let's say that they have to take that every day. So 1 million people taking a $7 pill every day, well, that would come out to $7 million a day, right? All right, let's do, I'm going to do my phone because I'm terrible with math. All right, but let's say that, let me get a darker marker so y'all can see this. All right, but let's say that changes, right? So let's say that they raise the price to $700 a pill. All right, so chances are, unless you have health insurance, you're not going to be able to afford that. So let's say that we knock off some people. Let's say that now only 700,000 of those million people have health insurance. Well, then those 700,000 are going to be the only ones getting that drug then. All right, but let's see if that's in the best interest of the pharmaceutical companies, right? So now if 700,000 people are buying a pill for $700, all right, then that's going to come out to $490 million they're making then. All right, so in this case, all right, and again, I'm not exactly sure of the numbers with HIV. I'm just kind of speculating here. And the drug might be weekly. I'm not even certain of that either. But either way, we can see that if they decide to raise the price of that pill, they're going to make significantly more money because the demand for that drug is inelastic. Same thing with the EpiPen, right? They could raise the price, and they know that people that have allergies are going to buy it regardless. All right, so we'll leave it off here for now. I told you I'd be a little bit short today. We're going to do some more practice with the shifting of demand curves to kind of make sure that we're all on the same page with it.